because we all have choices. We just have to be brave enough to make them. The backstory. For almost a dozen years, I'd toiled at one of the world's top public relations agencies, grinding my way from an entry-level account executive to a partner-track senior vice president leading a multi-million-dollar global practice. I was good, and I was going places. Yet I was fried. I could barely string 2 sentences together. My polished persona was nothing but a veneer. Other people liked me and my work, but I didn't like the person I had become. I tried to blame work-life balance, or the lack of it. Before children, I was a workhorse, an Energizer bunny, a machine. I did not stop. When I ate lunch, I usually did so at my desk while continuing to work, what my friend Hannah likes to call dining al desco. In my earliest years at the agency, I was among the first in the office, often arriving before the sun, and among the last to go home after the sky had turned dark again. I always felt a lonely pang when someone from the late-night cleaning crew knocked on my door and took the day's trash. Once, when I was still pretty junior, I told my supervisor I needed to work from home the next day to wait for the cable guy. There wasn't anything that resembled working from home back then, at least not at that agency. "You'll have to take a vacation day," he said. "But I'm not going on vacation," I said. "I have tons of work to do. I just need to do it from home while I wait for the guy to show up." "You'll have to take a vacation day," he repeated. What utter bullshit, I thought. Without fail, I work far more than the mandatory minimum of 50 hours a week, and don't complain when the clock starts over at 0 on Monday morning. I'm available to you 24/7. Where's the give and take? Things got trickier after I became a parent. I had been at the agency for about 6 years when my husband Dave and I decided to go for it. Funny thing was, I'd never planned on being a mom. In fact, for as long as I could remember, I was adamant that I did not want to have children. They're loud, they're expensive, and there's nothing I want to teach anyone, I thought. Throughout my 20s, my mother encouraged me to at least keep the door open to the idea. "You never know when you might change your mind," she said. And she was right. I arrived at my early 30s, looked around at my friends with kids who didn't seem completely miserable, and decided to try. The run-up to motherhood had been difficult. My first pregnancy, at age 33, was a complicated one due to what's called an incompetent cervix. I really can't think of a worse way to get a cervix to cooperate than by calling it incompetent, can you? That meant 2 key things. First, I had to get a pessary, which is kind of like an inflatable rubber donut that gets inserted through the vagina and past the cervix to sit at the base of the uterus so that baby won't, essentially, fall out. And each Tuesday, for roughly 6 months, Dave would haul me to the doctor's office to have that lovely little pessary taken out, sterilized, and put back in. I'll spare you the details, but let me just say that having someone screw around with your very sensitive cervix on a weekly basis isn't exactly how one hopes to spend a pregnancy. I maintain that self-medicating with Harvest Grain and Nut pancakes from IHOP after every visit was an entirely appropriate response. The second thing this meant was that, at all times outside of Pessary Tuesday, I was confined to bed rest. The doctor limited trips up and down the steps to once a day, a restriction that would have been more manageable had our lone bathroom not been situated on the 2nd floor. So I spent most of my time in my bedroom. On the rare days that I'd move the party to the 1st floor, I peed in a medical commode my husband lovingly placed in the dining room. This went on for 3 months, also not the way one hopes to spend a pregnancy. I did work from home for a while, but only because the doctor insisted, and then shifted to long-term disability status until the baby came. Waiting for my daughter to arrive wasn't the only thing that marked this period with uncertainty and concern. My dad, Leo, whom I loved so dearly, was dying of colon cancer.